What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Lock and Cash Podcasts, college football edition. I'm thinking about doing this recurring every week where I'll talk about 2 to 3 spots in college that I am interested in betting on and how I'm going to try to play on those specific angles. I've got 3 of them for this video here, so we'll go through 3 games, why I think they're interesting. We'll talk about some trends, a couple of systems that are active on these games, and how I'm looking to bet them. So I think this could be beneficial for you guys if you like the NFL content. There's nothing better than more football, right? Can't get enough of football. Last night, Thursday night, we had the Packers. That was a good win. We did have a release on Green Bay -3. If you watch the NFL market review, I did mention that I liked the Packers in that game. Game pretty much turned out how I thought it was going to turn out. A little close there at the end, surprisingly, but the Packers get it done. Before I get into the first game for Saturday in college, I am doing a 50% off week special. So if you're a new sign up, you never bought picks before from us, if you want to get a taste of what it's like, if there's a link down in the description for the week pass, just use code week50. Enter code week50, it will knock 50% off, and you can try for 7 days. That'll include everything. So we've got a bunch of NFL plays and college football plays already out for this weekend. That'll include our UFC card once it's finalized, probably later tonight. It'll include some baseball sprinkled in there as well. So for anybody interested, check that out. Code week50. All right, first game that I want to talk about. So starting in the afternoon, we've got Georgia taking on Tennessee, a big time SEC battle. And the reason why I want to talk about this game, Georgia laying 3.5 in this one, by the way, is because of the line movement. That's really what I want to discuss here. I mean, this is some very interesting line movement for Georgia, Tennessee. You had Georgia open up basically around a touchdown favorite on the road against this Tennessee team who has looked very sharp offensively so far this season. It's been one-way money for basically the entire week on the Vols, taking it down from 7 to 6, 5, 4, 3.5. And finally, today, you've kind of discovered the floor as we now see 4s across the board and even a 4.5 at FanDuel. So 3.5 was kind of the floor. That's when pros hit the other side, pushing this up to a 4-point spread. Now, the big question for me here is you kind of know how these games have gone in the past between these two teams. It's been very one-sided. And last year you saw that too with Nico as the quarterback for Tennessee, who's now at UCLA. Hasn't gotten much better for him over there. But with Aguilar now as the quarterback, I mean, man, he can really sling it. They've looked very sharp. The question here is the ownership between Kirby and Heupel. I mean, Kirby Smart has just owned this matchup. And for me, I think anything less than a touchdown here, you got to take a look at Georgia. Now, I'm not interested in laying 3.5 or 4 on the road. Even though Kirby Smart is, as a road favorite against Tennessee, he's 4-0 against the spread. But it's a new quarterback. It gives the Tennessee offense a different feel, a different vibe. He looks very sharp. He looks good. So we'll see if they can hang. The question for me is, as always, you kind of know what you're getting with Georgia's defense, even though this is not the Georgia of past years. You know what you're getting. They're going to limit. I mean, there's going to be limited points in this game. So I would lean under on the total. You see a 50.5 total. I think last year's game was 48. It went way under. You've got a 50.5 here. I lean under on the total. You kind of know what you're getting defensively with Georgia. How does Gunnar Stockton and the limited weapons that the Bulldogs have now, how do they attack that Tennessee defense? They've got to be able to generate explosive plays, which is what has killed them in the past. They've got to be able to run the ball. They haven't looked super dominant so far. Their first 2 games, Marshall and Austin Peay. But at the same time, you know Kirby usually holds back early on, especially against weaker opponents, and saves stuff for games like this. So to me, I'm looking at the Georgia side. I want to fade the market move. I think it's gone a bit too far. But I'm also not interested in laying the points. I love Georgia here as just a money line parlay piece. Love it. Combine it with whatever you like. It's -180. I even just like them straight up. I've got it like a little bit. I've got like 220 straight up is my number. So I just like Georgia to win the game. And I think you don't have to sweat it as much as you would to a 4-point spread if they win by 3. So I like Georgia in this one, but what I would really do is, what I'm probably going to do is use them in a money line parlay piece with something else. Potentially this next game that we're going to talk about, which is Vanderbilt versus South Carolina. Another game that has had wild line movement. Now, You kind of know what Vanderbilt's so the spread is currently 3 at minus 115 to South Carolina. This opened much higher though, as high as 8 in some places, and it has also taken insane movement down on the dog. You know what Vanderbilt's calling card is. They have cashed as underdogs. I believe with Pavia as their quarterback, I think they're like 5-0 on the road as dogs, something crazy like that. I remember last year they were a big dog at home to Tennessee where they did not cover. So they've been better on the road as dogs with him as quarterback. But just a very good team that has been cashing as an underdog. South Carolina has looked underwhelming so far this season, for sure. Can't argue that. They are 2-0. But if you remember that Sunday game they played against Virginia Tech, which was on a neutral field, that's worth noting, was not at home. Vatek was in that game for most of it until there was a punt return that was taken back for a touchdown by South Carolina, which kind of opened it up a little bit, made it a 2-possession game, and then their defense just held it down after that. But it was much closer than the final score would suggest. And I remember I had Virginia Tech in that game, and it was kind of a bad beat. Now they go back home, though. Here's the thing. The thing for me is just price. I mean, insane line movement, and I just can't get to this price. Like I cannot get to this number of 3 at home. Virginia Tech last weekend was laying 2.5 at home to Vanderbilt. And that was not a result, by the way, of pros hitting Vandy, because that line opened at -1. Vatek opened -1 at home to Vanderbilt, bought up to -2.5. They ended up losing the game outright. But the point is, we're talking about price. South Carolina opens 8, now down to 3. Man, that's a big move. I don't think it's off by that much. I've got this game pegged at 6. You could maybe sell me on 5.5. But I think South Carolina should be a 6-point favorite here. But remember, this is a night game in Columbia. This is a rough environment against a very good. Yes, they lost a lot of talent. I know a lot of players in the NFL now from South Carolina a year ago. It's still a very good SEC defense. You still got the best player on the field with Sellers, right? I know he's not great throw. He's not going to throw the ball 30 times, right? But he's such a dynamic player. He can win games on his own. And now you're just asking me to lay 3. I don't even have to worry about if they win by 3. I'm not getting killed by the hook. Full disclosure, I grabbed South Carolina -3 in this one. I waited. I actually grabbed the 4. I saw it went down further because I'm thinking to myself, it's not going to go down anymore. Then I bought off the 4 and I've got 3 now. So I've got South Carolina -3 in this game. I'm going to fade the hype on Vanderbilt. Listen, teams are not going to stay mispriced forever, right? If a team keeps cashing as a dog, eventually books will adjust. I think this is adjusted too far. All right. So I think South Carolina true line 5.5 to 6. I really like this play. South Carolina -3 on Saturday. And I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, if this is just one of those games where it's just everyone's like, oh, South Carolina doesn't look great. And then they kind of just put it together. They win the game by double digits. That's what I'm expecting, but we'll see. All right. The last one I want to talk about is Florida versus LSU, another SEC game that is going to be really good. LSU's laying 7.5 at home against Florida. And this one is just all about the situational spot. And I'll talk about that a little bit. So what happened last week? Well, we all saw South Florida go into the swamp at Florida as a 17-point underdog and win that game outright, okay, on a field goal at the end of the game. Insanely disappointing loss for Florida, embarrassing loss for Florida. One of my favorites, you'll hear me say this a lot this year, one of my favorite situational spots is playing on teams after they got embarrassed at home and then they hit the road. Because they get away from the noise, they get away from the negativity, they get away from the people chirping about how could we lose that game? What a disappointing game! Get away from all that. Go on the road into a hostile environment with a chip on your shoulder against an LSU team that I'm very high on. In the opener, we hit them outright against Clemson, but could be potentially overvalued in this specific spot, laying a full touchdown in this specific spot against a pretty good Florida team. Also dealing with injuries on the offensive line. That's going to be very important. One of the things to remember, and Florida's offensive line going up against this front. Florida's got a very good offensive line. You saw last week, they barely allowed any pressure from South Florida. I don't want to call it fluky. The Bulls earned that win, but I wouldn't take too much away from it. And now let's get to the system. The system here, let me pull it up. When you have a team, uh, that lost at home, basically, uh, they lose at home after laying a big number. So they're a 7-point favorite or more, coming off a loss at home outright. Now they hit the road against an undefeated conference opponent. That's the key. Okay. These teams, 10-3 ATS. Okay. If they were a touchdown favorite or more. Now, if they were just a favorite, it's still 26-12 ATS, 69%. Very good. But when they were a touchdown favorite or more, lose the game at home, hit the road against an undefeated conference opponent, 10-3, 77% against the spread. That's active on Florida. Also, Billy Napier as a dog in conference plays, 18-7 against the spread, 72% in his career, and just with Florida, 11-5, 69% in the SEC. I think all this is enough to point me towards the Gators in a bounce back spot. The 7.5 has taken some money, so you may be able to get a 7 out there, but still like it. I think this game is one of those games where they come off that embarrassing loss and you might think that's it for this team, but LSU is a little fat and happy, 2-0, a little overvalued, and this game I think lands on a field goal. I think this is a game that one of these teams either way wins by 3. I don't care for the money line in this spot because you're a big road dog, but I do like Florida +7. So guys, those are the 3 games that I'm looking at this weekend. Georgia, Tennessee, Vandy, South Carolina, Florida, LSU. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments if you agree or disagree with any one of these. And like I said, take advantage of code WEEK50 for 50% off. Also in that link down below, you can sign up to get free picks via text. I'll have one going out tonight, Friday, for a late game. So check that out. And thanks for watching as always. I'll see you guys next time.